Hi, everyone. This is Teresa. I'm just admitting everybody into the webinar. Hi.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right.
I'm just getting a couple of the tabs open and admitting whoever else is coming into the conference or the Zoom call. Hi, Poppy. Let's see.
Pop, you're on mute.
Awesome. I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes because sometimes people are just looking for the link to sign in.
Yeah, there are a couple of people that are texting me too that are, hold on, let's see.
Do you need me to resend the link? Did you have trouble?
The one that you sent me was good. I just wasn't sure if it was only going to open as soon as it hit 6:30, which obviously it did, so we're good.
Okay. For everybody who's signed in to the call right now, I just want to advise if you have any questions or if you have any concerns, you can always click the chat box and you can chat me directly or everybody directly. I'm going to try to put everybody on mute now. This way there's just no background noise.
Someone's got Sinatra on.
Michael, can you lower that?
Alexa off.
Off now.
Oh, thank you.
Alexa.
Okay, thank you. We had a better day today. Oh, more people are joining in. Definitely better weather-wise. I'm getting optimistic. I'm hoping the sun comes out, kills the virus, everything's back to normal.
Right in time for the beach.
Oh, seriously. So you're out in Long Island. Poppy's out in Long Island. Voss, you're in Long Island too?
Where is he? Is
Yeah.
he muted?
Yeah, I think he's muted. You're in Long Island. I'm in Westchester. I was quarantined in my apartment for over a week, and then I couldn't do it anymore, so I came to my family's house in Westchester. And so for those of us who have the option to get out of Manhattan, I think now more than ever, people are just, they are like getting stir crazy. I read this crazy article. Somebody had given a blank check to a broker in the Hamptons and just said, make something happen. I need to get out of my apartment.
Help me.
So for everybody who's here, I'm going to put you on mute just so there's no background distractions. Feel free to type into the chat box if you have any questions as we present and we begin. I'm going to share my screen and get this presentation started. My name is Teresa Alessandro. I'm with Elegant Real Estate. I also have Voss of Wells Fargo and Poppy, who is an attorney, here on the call with me. Us three are basically, we're a trio here, just bringing you to the forefront as to what's going on in the market right now in New York. I know a couple of the people on this call might be past clients or prospective clients. At any time, feel free to reach out to us and ask us questions privately or, you know, collectively as it pertains to your personal questions on investing. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share this. Okay, here we are. Okay, so you should be seeing my screen now. Everybody all good? Hopefully we're seeing it.
Yep.
Okay. We'll go in present mode like this. Okay. So I've done this earlier in the year and Voss accompanied me at Elegant headquarters. We called it the Smart Move Seminar. And I was trying to do it once a quarter. So we're bringing this forth again today and we're doing a Smart Move seminar to just go over a couple of things happening. We'll introduce you to us and our experience in the marketplace. We're going to go over the economics of what's going on right now in New York, in Manhattan, the costs of buying and selling, the art of financing, brought to you by Voss and Wells Fargo, because there are unbelievable strategies out there and cheap money. And then we'll talk about some of the moves you can make to be a savvy seller, buyer, investor, and Poppy is going to give some insight about the legal changes that have been implemented because of the coronavirus. Then we can answer any questions you might have. So if you don't know me or if you've just met me, my name is Teresa. I'm with Ellegren Real Estate. I consider myself an advisor. Overnight, I became an economist, and I've been basically researching everything that's going on, comparing what's going on right now to what happened during September 11th and bringing some guidance to you as to what you can expect. I'm a licensed broker. I have experience in new construction. I've done board packages my whole career. Pied-à-terre expert. I have a lot of clients that spend their time between the suburbs and Manhattan. So I've gotten really good at securing those kind of transactions. And then I have advisors such as Poppy and Voss, from different bankers to different legal opinions to helping us get to closing. Just want to double check. Is everybody able to see the screen?
I can see it.
Sorry about that. Okay. So let's get into the real nitty-gritty stuff here. Everybody's curious as to what's going on in the market. There's a lot of things we need to adapt to right now. I mean, we've been shut down. Manhattan has over 9 million people, and all of a sudden it's been diminished to 2 million and everything is closed. So we're trying to understand how to adapt and find winning deals in this marketplace. We have a lot of macroeconomic things that are affecting us. I would say in 2008, it was a financial crisis and a downturn. In the past, we had kind of a soft market because it was political and policy driven, between SALT deduction taxes, mansion taxes, changes in transfer taxes. But now, as we're looking at what's going on, this is a complete medical crisis. It's not the financial crisis. It's not a downturn. So we're approaching it with a different lens. Simple takeaways here. You'll see price point specific shifts and ways to negotiate. The ultra luxury, which is 3 million plus, you're getting kind of like that Costco's wholesale value for a price per square foot product. Obviously, things are taking much longer to sell because we can't leave our houses. And surprisingly enough, the inventory has decreased. You have over 2,000 units that got taken off the market. Today, I just blogged about what it means to have a shadow listing. So between new development and resale units, when they go off market and just linger for a better day to list and get the higher price, that's considered a shadow listing. And we're seeing a lot of that now. Rental concessions are still in effect, even though we had one of the 8 highest years for the rental market in Manhattan. And I think just all of this stalled, these stalled closings and consumer confidence is basically dismantling transactions that are going on. So if you are cash heavy, or if you are very good at pinpointing and valuing a property, you can swoop in and basically steal the deal from a lot of these closings that have just dismantled over the last couple of weeks. People are losing their jobs and they're getting their money back, their deposit back. So this is just a great graphic. This is not the housing crisis. It's not a recession. And you'll notice here, the home prices have changed since 2008. You had a dip in values of home prices. However, the last 3 recessions in history, from specifically 2001 during 9/11, home prices actually appreciated. So if this is correlated to what went on in 2011, we're projecting for home prices to appreciate that 6% minimum. And what I've been calling this is the Great Rebound. It's not the Great Recession. Yes, we have uncertainty. We're going to see price drops. If you can ride out this wave as a seller, you will get your price. If you have a renovated product, you'll get your price. There is a decline in inventory, so you might not see what you're looking for. 450 listings went off market just this month. That's a 79 decrease in live listings overall. between the announcement of coronavirus until now, and that's a phenomenal amount of just properties that are no longer available. New development actually has construction delays, so they can't deliver a finished product and move-ins on time. You're seeing after-hours trading between the stock market and the real estate market, in which people are submitting bundled deals to purchase 2 or 3 apartments at a heavily discounted rate. Basically, when the floodgates open and we're allowed to leave our homes and the virus is subsiding, I project people to just basically go out there, still transact, and if you are negotiable and you're getting a deal at a discounted price, consider it like 9/11's timeframe, where you'll see property appreciating, if not 6% or more. During 9/11, the market actually closed 3 days, where here, right now in this scenario, we've been open. And so you're seeing so much volatility, which is concerning, but we're not at a standstill. And then the unemployment projections next year are favorable. We've superseded the target. They thought we were going to have 3 million unemployed and wound up being 6. By the end of this week, it's going to be 10 million. The numbers keep changing. However, it's just because we have a Band-Aid on the situation. Once the floodgates open and people go back to work, we're projecting that our GDP and our employment will be more favorable next year. So definitely to ride it out this year. This is a great, very simple chart just showing you the correlation between unemployment rates and home sales. In fact, when unemployment rose, home sales were not affected and did not dip significantly. Since 2008, lending standards have been tightened, and Voss will speak about this. So we have a safety net to stop, things from being foreclosed and property values to just drop significantly. So I do think this is another indicator of a positive outlook at the end of the virus. And then this is really just how we can adapt right now. You'll notice on the right, you have just a couple of takeaways. Average days of market has really increased here. Average discount is 10%, whereas last quarter was 7%. So you have an increase in negotiability. With all these new developments, you might notice that they basically want to get asking price, but there's so many under the table deals that are happening between closing cost concessions and transfer tax concessions that negotiability is in effect. And this is everything we're looking at in order to understand our investment. Flattening the curve, we're watching what happens after the stimulus bill, the checks get cut. When is the next Fed meeting? How is that going to affect rates? Unemployment, New York City's mayor elections, and then the stock market's performance. These are all indicators that as an investor, a buyer or seller, I'd be happy to speak to you about one-on-one so we can make appropriate decisions. Now I would love to pass this over to Poppy if she wants to just break down some of the costs associated.
Sure. So in terms of closing costs, the biggest fees that you're looking at when you are the seller is typically the broker's invoices are covered on the seller side. Transfer tax is covered on the seller side. And if you are on the buyer side, obviously your title bill is going to be one of the biggest costs that you're covering. Your title bill typically will include if taxes are due within the first 2 months of closing, taxes will be on your title bill. Obviously, your loan policy and your owner's policy are also incorporated in your final title bill. And that's really what hikes up your title bill at closing. That's one of the biggest expenses in terms of a buyer's closing fee. Your legal fee, the balance of your legal fee, if your attorney is charging you a retainer up front or not. And then depending on if it's a co-op or a condo, if it's a co-op, you're going to have management fees as well at closing, which could include, depending on who the management company is in the co-op, move-in fees, move-out fees, things of that nature. But your biggest costs that you're looking at are really your title bill. And then from a seller's perspective, your transfer tax and your broker's invoices are going to be the biggest costs.
So any specific breakdown for a transaction you're looking at, we're happy to just do an estimated closing cost overview for you, whether it's a condo, co-op, a multifamily home. We would align this with your pre-approval letter and a financial statement to just give you a good understanding of what your monthly carrying costs are. Poppy, you do this all the time where you just take the property in question, the price point, the taxes, and you have a great overview to share with whoever's interested in the product.
Absolutely. And especially if you are the purchaser of real estate, title companies are very helpful as soon as you are even interested. Once you have an accepted offer, if you go to the title company or you speak to your attorney and you reach out to your title company, they are really great with working with buyers, giving estimated title bills even at the onset. So you have a purchase price, you know what your down payment is, you know what county you're dealing with taxes and things like that. You can get a very accurate understanding of what your final cost will be.
So that's a good takeaway before you even have to give a deposit or spend a dime.
Absolutely.
And then breaking into the other facet of how the art of financing has changed during this coronavirus time, Vas is going to speak to, you know, why you should be financing your purchase, how low rates are, and everything of that nature.
Yeah, so I mean, it's very pitchy to say, but rates literally are at all-time lows, and it kind of created a perfect storm in the mortgage markets. But just to talk about rates in general, I mean, if you're buying right now and you're looking to get a rate on a 30-year mortgage, for instance, these are the lowest rates I've ever seen, you know, in the past 13, 14 years I've been doing this. So definitely borrowing money from banks is cheap right now. However, things have changed due to the impact of COVID-19 and what it's done to the mortgage industry. And because of that, banks have had to change and adapt to the environment that we're in right now. So with that being said, one of the things that happened was the Fed came out and said, okay, so we are going to lower the Fed funds rate. And immediately the first question I get asked or calls that I get is people saying, hey, I heard the Fed lowered the rates. You know, I heard rates are very low right now because the Fed lowered them. Where we're at. One discrepancy and one thing I do want to make clear, the Fed funds rate has nothing to do with your mortgage interest rate. Yes, when the Fed lowers the federal funds rate, it makes money basically cheaper for banks. They're able to increase their liquidity, and that naturally causes rates in the downturn to end up coming down as well. But the Fed funds rate really has nothing to do with your mortgage interest rate. So that's the first thing right there. And then here are some rates, at least so you can see today, you know, kind of where pricing is at. So you can literally get in the low 3s or high 2s, for instance, on a fixed or adjustable rate for a purchase. Oh, my camera just fell.
That's okay.
All right. So anyway, so the impact though that the banks are having now. Huh? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, sorry. But one of the things that is happening today now is obviously because of COVID-19, you know, banks have to change up their processes. So what does that mean? For instance, an appraisal, you know, if you have an inspection or you have to have someone come to your house, a lot of people have been weary about the health concerns for that, banks as well. So they are changing guidelines to now adapt to that. So if you're buying a property and you're planning to put less than 20% down right now, it's very hard to get an approved loan if the full inspection is needed and someone has to go into the house. Not necessarily because the banks won't approve the loan, but because sellers we are seeing or people are not allowing or don't want people to come into their home with, you know, the virus concerns. So that's one thing. And the second shift has been to the virtual world. So now we are having closings that are held virtually. You know, you don't have to go into a bank or you don't have to go to an office to actually do a closing. And guidelines and rules have to be changed to, you know, meet those standards as well. So this slide is interesting. This kind of just talks about how the impact of everything and what happened. And with rates being low, everyone was looking to refinance their loans. And as of the end of March, about 75% of all mortgage applications right now are refinances. And that's great for those that are refinancing. However, on the servicer side, it caused a lot of strain, which impacted the markets. Now, one thing that Teresa mentioned before, which I agree with, is this, you know, analysts are saying that the rebound is going to be much quicker. So once we do come out of this and once we do, you know, start to hear about the curve flattening more or, you know, possible talks of vaccines or getting through the virus impact, analysts are projecting that rather than, you know, a U recovery where it'll be gradual, it'll be more of a V shape where we'll, you know, kind of get back to those norms. So as a seller, that's great because that means, you know, you can still get a consistent price on what you're selling. We don't think that there's going to be an impact to values really as of now. And for buyers, rates are still super, super low, and you can take advantage of borrowing cheap money, which is pretty beneficial, obviously, if you're looking to lock in a 30-year fix, for instance.
So I know we had a couple of people join the call. If everybody's able to use the chat, if you'd like to just type in and just give us an understanding of where you're at, if you are a current owner, if you are looking to possibly buy, this way I can understand what kind of questions we can then tweak, because we will get into what are the appropriate moves to be making in this environment. And I would love to cater it to whoever our audience is tonight.
Yes, and just if I can jump on, Teresa, if you guys do explain kind of what your situation is, it would also be helpful for me for the next couple of conversations to let me know if you're in contract already or if you are about to be in contract or you're just interested.
I'm just going to type in the chat so everybody sees it. You can also unmute yourselves if you'd like to ask me questions verbally, you can. Everyone public, okay. This is new. This is the first time I'm doing an actual Zoom with more than 5 people, so thank you for your patience. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm just looking at the names that are here. I know a couple of people might just be browsing. Okay, so no questions at this time then. Oh, here, Amanda. Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda. I'm with Liberty Land Abstract Title Insurance. Interested to see what's going on from a different perspective and different players in the real estate world. Oh, thank you. Edwina said, currently not in contract, but I've been looking at purchasing a 2-3 bedroom home in Brooklyn. Okay, very interesting. We can cater the conversation to Brooklyn. Just getting some of that. Okay, so in terms of what's going on in Brooklyn, we will move on to some of the moves you can be making right now in this environment. As I was mentioning before, anything over 3 million or something that's of a bigger space is actually more negotiable. Under $1 million mark, you're still seeing a bit of bidding wars and interest because it's just such a sweet spot. Some of the moves and takeaways I'm going to wrap up with are how you can find value, how you can transact in this environment. Poppy's going to go over some legal terms and strategies that have been implemented, and then leveraging your finances on a personal level. We can talk offline about, you know, your particular budget. Right now, I really like to highlight, and I do this all the time in every seminar, I want to talk about opportunity zones. Let's put this in play mode over here. View present. The opportunity zones are where the developers are following this trend. So opportunity zones are federal designated tracts of land in economically depressed areas. So Long Island City was one of them. The federal government basically carved it out, saying this place needs to be cleaned up. We need to bring some life and new structures to this place. So let's give a tax break. And developers move there, build luxury rental buildings. There's tax abated condos, and that really allows a new neighborhood to pop up overnight. So if you follow the trends of where opportunity zones are already carved out, you should be able to buy in those areas and see the appreciation because of the shops, the types of people that move there, and the things that change. Tipping points in Manhattan, I have a really great graph we'll go over to understand in what neighborhood is your tipping point. For example, in Tribeca, the tipping point has been calculated to be 30 years. At that point, it is actually, after 30 years, it's actually cheaper for you to wind up renting than buying a condo in Tribeca. Rehab units are definitely tipping points. If you find a unit that needs to be fixed up and you can get in contract at a discounted price, that's certainly the best way to create value. And then buying wholesale on a price per square foot. A lot of the bigger townhouses, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom units, those are having a harder time to sell, but you are buying on a price per square foot that is less than if you bought a 1-bedroom or a studio. And so buying those wholesale units, you're basically buying more space for less money. And then we can also consider the suburbs. and townhomes, as I was mentioning. The suburbs offer a plethora of opportunity. You're 30 minutes into the city, just as if you were taking the subway. Some of the suburb homes can be multifamily, where you have, you know, a mother-daughter setup and you can rent out the unit. So definitely something this year, I think after COVID-19, we're going to see a baby boom, believe it or not, maybe in the next 8 years. And people are going to be looking at suburb homes more so than New York City homes. Let me just show you this great tipping point chart here, and the opportunity zone chart. So this is the opportunity zone chart. If you're seeing my screen, all these little tracts of red outlined land are places that have been designated as opportunity zones. So Long Island City, I was mentioning, Greenpoint, as I was mentioning, these are all sections that have been carved out to be development sections. Somebody said, hi, all starting to think about renting versus buying in Long Island, just starting the process and hoping to learn more about Long Island real estate. Okay, so there are even parts of Long Island that I can suggest if we follow the opportunity zone map. And feel free to send me your email so I can share this map with you. Long Beach was a complete opportunity zone and redeveloped after Sandy, parts of Hempstead. And so if you're looking to buy in Long Island and you're going to see a bigger jump in appreciation, buy around these areas and understand and talk to us to know how long should you be holding that home in that area until you sell. Homes like, you know, townhouses that I have on the screen, this townhouse is selling at $1,700 a square foot, where typically in Greenwich Village, things sell for about $2,000. So buying real wholesale in bigger spaces, you can, you know, create value out of that. Let's do. So anything that we're talking about today, the opportunity zone maps, just feel free to pop me your email in a direct message and I can send it over to you. Some takeaways of how to transact right now. If you're a seller and you don't have a great product, you don't have a great view, you need to price competitively. You're really at the mercy of the buyer pool. And if the buyer pool is feeling uncertain, you can't price ridiculously. You need to be fair. You're gonna have to hold steady because things will sit on the market longer. Renovated homes will go into bidding wars. I've seen that very frequently in Brooklyn. A lot of the beautifully detailed original finishes, those homes with low carrying costs, they'll go into bidding wars, $100,000, $200,000 off ask. Downtown Manhattan as an opportunity zone is actually seeing an upward tick of 15%. So it is the best neighborhood right now in terms of appreciation. So if you own downtown, you might want to consider selling or seeing what you can take back from the sale of the property. And then the suburbs are also in consideration. If you're buying, resale prices are down 15 to 30%, depending on the product type. So if you have an affinity with one particular neighborhood or building, looking at the comps won't just do you justice. You really want to understand the strategies and the negotiation points to get further discounts at closing. New development, nobody's paying asking price. If you paid asking price for a new development, you definitely got ripped off. And I'm very sorry, but the last 2-3 years, they're negotiating right off ask at the closing table. Rents were at a 5-year high. I foresee them to still hold those rates because people are gonna feel more confident renting instead of buying until this year subsides and the sun comes out and people are back to considering, should I own? Why am I throwing money away at rent? How should I make that move? And financing itself, if you're a buyer, is a strategy. Homes like this is a complete gut renovated studio, unobstructed views of Manhattan. Things like this is where you can find value. You would gut renovate this into something prettier with modern finishes, and you're able to make an appreciation and you're able to resell for $200 a square foot more than what you bought it for. So this was a great case study. This was a pied-à-terre from a client that renovated. And then Poppy's really going to segue into what legally can you change and take advantage of during this crazy time.
So quickly, obviously if people have questions, you can unmute yourself or throw it in the chat, but just really quickly to go over a few things that I've seen and that I've heard other attorneys do that are super helpful just in navigating with what's going on. First, obviously, we are able to do virtual closings. And so there are virtual closing strategies and personal success stories. I actually just did one yesterday or 2 days ago that went really well. Virtual closings are absolutely possible. What I will say is, in order to accomplish a virtual closing, you need cooperation from all key players. If it's a house, for example, you need your title closer on board, your seller's attorney, your bank attorney, if there is one, and your buyer's attorney, all on the same page, because there is a lot of preparation that needs to take place, but it is possible. So the way that we handled it, the seller's attorney delivered all of the pre-signed and notarized documents to the bank attorney. After that, the bank attorney had all of the bank docs tabbed and the title docs ready to go and delivered to the doorstep of the buyers. The buyers opened the door, picked up the package, and at that time they jumped on a FaceTime call with myself. I was acting as the bank attorney in this situation, with myself and the buyer's attorney and the buyers themselves all got on a FaceTime call, and we went through the step-by-step. There's a mandated, there are rules about how we are doing these online notarizations. You need to affirmatively state that you're present in New York State. You have to show your IDs. So once you go through that protocol, then the buyer's attorney, from the comfort of his own home, was explaining the docs to his clients, as the bank attorney myself was watching and making sure that everything was being signed properly. And at that time, the package, once it was finished, was delivered. We scanned our funding approval from the comfort of our own home. Once the bank gave us approval, we wired proceeds, and it was really, it was easy the day of, but there is absolutely preparation and cooperation from all parties that's required in order to make it work. That is definitely something that is keeping closings happening and scheduled through this craziness. Another thing that is really important for if you are in the process of getting into a contract, it's really important that your attorney, whether you are a seller or a buyer, is incorporating different riders to your contract in order to give you the protections that you need. The New York State Association of Realtors, there's a COVID-19 rider specifically that other attorneys are able to use. If you have retained an attorney, your attorney can sometimes, they can cater it to your specific needs, but generally what the riders are doing is they're protecting both buyers and sellers in the event that there are delays related to what's going on right now. There are typically, outside of COVID, in your real estate contract, there are a lot of deadlines. For example, getting your appraisal, getting your mortgage commitment. In order for the title company to produce a title report, there's certain things that need to take place. And right now, because of the situation, everything is kind of on pause. So these riders, what they're doing is really just giving the buyers and sellers in these situations protections where timelines are delayed and parties in the contract are understanding and willing to delay and postpone until everything is back up and running. So it's really important that you are using these creative ways to incorporate added protection to your client, whether you're a buyer or you are a seller, just so that we can make sure that we can get to closing when things normalize. Another thing that we have is inspection riders. A lot of people are concerned because they either can't conduct an inspection in the beginning or right before closing, they can't conduct a final walkthrough. There are absolutely ways that we are addressing those problems, specifically with these inspection riders. If you guys are interested or you want more information, I can go into more detail about what the riders specifically state to protect you, whether you are a buyer or a seller. But for the final inspection, one of the riders that I had in a contract last week, essentially we were holding money in escrow so if the property is vacant, it's a lot easier to conduct the final walkthrough. But the problem that we're running into is when the property is not vacant and the sellers don't feel comfortable with the final walkthrough right before closing, they want to protect themselves, and they should. And to keep the environment safe, sellers are agreeing to hold money in escrow until the buyers are able to conduct a proper final inspection. And sometimes they do what's called a post-possession agreement, where the sellers stay in possession of the property and the sellers maintain fees, and they work out what the per diem fee is to stay in possession of the property until things normalize. So again, with all of these different scenarios, the biggest thing is that buyers' attorneys and sellers' attorneys need to communicate with each other, and there needs to be this level of cooperation, which the silver lining to what's going on is that all parties, and in every transaction that I've been dealing with since this has gone on, everyone understands and has become very cooperative. So that is the good news. And the general COVID contract addendums that can be added if you are already in contract, I haven't had any sellers or buyers attorneys have problems signing them, where we are basically just saying that the buyer and the seller are still under the same contractual obligations, but timelines will be delayed. Mortgage commitments, if we can't get them right away, people are willing to be patient. And in the event that the buyer, what we are seeing a lot is if a mortgage is conditioned on, if a contract is contingent on financing, and for whatever reason, say a borrower loses their job and can't get the same funding, we're giving buyers, these riders are giving buyers easy way outs to protect their down payment in the event that they can't get the financing that they need. Another big problem that we have figured out creative ways to address is because the county clerk offices are closed, the big importance there is that, you know, your deed and your mortgage need to be recorded. And because they can't be recorded right now, a lot of times the title companies at the closing table are asking both buyers and sellers to sign title affidavits. And sometimes lenders will also require certain affidavits to be signed, just stating that they will be held harmless in the event that, you know, there's a delay in the recording, which again, all parties understand that that is just the nature of what's going on in the environment that we're in right now.
I had somebody negotiate, you know, I was speaking to another colleague in my office, and they were saying maybe the building itself needs to go through some crazy deep cleaning to avoid germs or something like that. And so they said in their contract that the seller is responsible for any assessment that should come forth between when they own and are living in the apartment till the possession on the buy side of the apartment, in case they have some kind of scenario or lawsuit that all of a sudden occurs because of coronavirus and the new buyer doesn't want to be associated with it. So really,
absolutely. It's really, honestly, it's good faith, effort, and reasonableness are really the standards that we're looking at here. And I think that's a big takeaway in terms of buyers that might feel a little bit uneasy, is that if you haven't gone into contract yet and you haven't accepted offer, or you're looking to get into contract, speak to your attorney if you haven't retained one already, or make sure that you bring it up to your attorney about what types of riders and protections relating to COVID can be incorporated into your contract. Because listen, if you get into contract, you can always add an addendum later on, but doing it in the beginning at the forefront when you're drafting and you make sure that all parties are really on the same page, it helps the situation. Because the truth is, and it's unfortunate, but a lot of people, we can't make the predictions that we want, that our clients might be coming and asking us the questions to. And because of that, we need to do our best to protect our clients. I have a client who, you know, the mortgage lender, they've already gotten the commitment, and now the mortgage lender has rescinded their commitment due to these corona, you know, fears. And that wasn't something that we could have anticipated at the onset of our contract drafting, but it's a simple addendum that was able to be signed. And the truth is, every seller's attorney also knows on the other side of this that, you know, it has nothing to do with the buyer's inability to get the commitment or to get to the closing. They just need more time. So people are absolutely cooperative, but it's so important to make sure that your attorney is doing everything that they can to protect you when you're a buyer, and your down payment could potentially be at risk when you don't have those protections incorporated into your contract. The other thing that I'll mention is quickly, because title companies work with so many third-party service providers and independent contractors that help them get the reports that they need, and because some of them are just not functioning right now, it's very hard to get some of the searches that you need and that your lender will require you to have by closing. One way that we've found to be super helpful in addressing some of those potential title issues that you could normally or otherwise address and close when title companies are working at 100% capacity. But if you are the seller in a transaction and you have your owner's policy from when you originally purchased, sometimes that will help if you can give it over to the buyer's attorney and submit that to the title company, and they can use your owner's policy to clear a lot of issues that would otherwise delay because these title companies are working at, you know, a much lower capacity than they're used to. So there are definitely ways. I do want to encourage people, if they're interested in purchasing, I would absolutely not let what's going on right now deter you, assuming you have an attorney that is familiar with particular riders and language that can be incorporated into your contract to truly protect you. Because everyone wants to get, and I think that's what I'm seeing with these virtual closings. People want to close, and the sellers want to sell, the buyers want to buy, the lenders want to lend, but we need to do it in a way that's both safe for our clients and also protecting our clients in a way that we don't know we can't anticipate what's going on in the future, but we can absolutely incorporate language into contracts to protect our clients.
And this is just a really brief overview, naturally, for everybody's individual scenario and situation. This gets completely changed for you when you identify a property and a place. I personally have made offers on properties that I've seen before coronavirus and now during coronavirus when I saw them go off market. And I'm realizing the responses between the seller's agent is very instantaneous, and they're antsy to get deals done. So I know there's going to be a lot of demand once the floodgates open and people leave their houses. Poppy, thank you, because that was a lot of good tidbits and secrets to really share. I wanted to also loop in, as you were mentioning, mortgage contingencies and protecting people's deposit in case of hardship. If they lost their job, they can't get a mortgage. Voss, who was with Wells Fargo, has some things to talk about how you can leverage your finances and those mortgages.
Yeah, so here are some tips in light of the day and age that we're in, of some things you should be aware of on the mortgage side when looking for a lender. Definitely you want to look for transparency right now, and I think someone had mentioned in the chat that they were looking to potentially buy something soon. If you've been pre-approved already, or you spoke to a bank maybe a month or a little while back, you definitely want to revisit those conversations with the lenders and ask them, hey, has anything changed as far as my criteria? Has anything changed in the process of my approval? Am I going to be able to still apply for the mortgage and get a mortgage under the same circumstances that you guys previously approved me? Like Poppy had mentioned, we're finding and hearing stories, from many different attorneys and people that, they were approved for a loan, they got the commitment, and then now they're waiting for the funding, and the banks are not funding these loans anymore for whatever reason. So definitely go back and revisit if you've already spoken to a bank, and just double check that the terms that you were approved for before still hold true now. You also want to make sure that that they are also providing digital services, like Poppy said too, with the closings and the way business is being done today. Some of these smaller lenders or these smaller shops or brokerages don't have the capacity or don't have the ability to handle virtual closings or to handle appraisal waivers or drive-by appraisals or document collection and fee collection, things like that. So you want to make sure that you have or working with the lender basically that has that ability. And most of the larger lenders are pretty much already virtual anyway before COVID. But now, especially with closings and the way closings are being done, especially for purchases, you want to make sure that not only your attorneys and your sellers and your title companies are all on board, but you got to make sure that the bank is also allowing the online closings too. And then you also just want to be aware of the advertising and stuff being put out there. A lot of products that were previously offered as far as loans are no longer there today temporarily. So if you were looking for super low down payments, if you were looking for cash out refinances, for instance, on maybe you own an investment property, a lot of these banks have temporarily put pauses on specific types of products. So you just want to be careful and double check with your lender, whoever you might have spoken with before, to make sure that those products are still being offered. And like I said, rates are still low too. So if you are, looking for a quote or just looking to double check to see kind of what's out there and available to you, don't kind of just go off of the first rate or quote that someone's giving you. Shop it around, because each bank too has its own niche of where its sweet spot is in as far as rates. So those are some tips there for at least leveraging the finances and when looking for a lender today.
I just wanted to just briefly put up your bios. Obviously, Poppy, who is on the phone, she's on the webcam. She's the attorney that we have as our guest speaker of the evening with all that good information and secrets. And Voss is with Wells Fargo. So these two are within my network and two people I call upon. If for your particular needs, let's sit down, let's understand how we can all work together and do something strategic. If anybody has any questions, comments, curiosities as to what's happening, feel free to type or unmute yourselves. We're here to answer whatever you have. Let me just check the chat box. How are we liking Zoom? Is this interesting? Is it efficient? Open to the feedback.
My feedback is I love meetings where I can, in the comfort of my own home, be super involved.
Sure. I have my dog over here who's
I was
listening
gonna
in.
say, yeah, bring my dog to all my work meetings.
It's crazy in terms of the world of brokerage. A lot of brokerages are now, I think after this, they're going to consider removing their office spaces and, you know, storefronts. I don't think a broker really needs to be in an office.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say one of the best takeaways I think the real estate industry is going to see from what's going on is we've been waiting for a virtual ability to do closings and do less things, you know, in person. And I think that the more that we do this, once this is all over, you know, we will have created some sense of normalcy in doing virtual closings and having things done more remotely. So I really hope that these policies stay in place because it's made it a lot easier.
I agree. Everybody who's on the chat or on the call, feel free, even if you don't want to type in your question, feel free to email me and I will walk you through it. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your time and your attention and participation. I'm excited. I'm an optimist. You know, it's a down market, but out of every down market, there's winners and losers. And I look forward to helping you guys win in what's going on, finding something at the right price. And, you know, life goes on. Everything will be okay after this. Stay healthy. I'll see everybody in the spring, the summer, when the sun comes out.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. I'm going to. Thanks.